Coming up tonight, invasion of the cane toads. Officials are warning residents to be on the lookout as they are said to be migrating throughout the island. Plus, the Nassau Village MP says crime is on the decline in that community. Hear why. And later, producer and philanthropist Tyler Perry talks future projects and possible collaborations. And then in our news at 7:30, a former health minister questions a shortage of medicine and important medical supplies. We have the details as our news live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Megan Shepard filling in for Kentino Knowles. Tonight, the Ministry of Environmental Health is on high alert as an invasive species is once again making a reappearance. Our Joshua Williams spoke with a wildlife biologist about the return of the cane toad and has this report.
If you're in the western area of New Providence, you may want to keep an eye out, especially at night. The invasive cane toad is back, and government officials warning residents to be on the lookout for the pesky amphibian. Scott Johnson, a wildlife biologist and environmental scientist, says while sightings of the animals are in the west, the toads are on the move.
What we're seeing right now is more of an eastern progression of these toads from their original site where we found them first. To what's happening right now. So they're continuing to move east, and that's going to be a big problem for communities that live in the eastern side of the island.
Johnson was a part of search and capture efforts during the last emergence in 2021.
They were originally found first in Lyford Key, and then they were recently found in 2021. They were found in the Venetian West area. And now they have moved to, they're being sighted now at LPIA.
The latest prompting a release from officials at the Nassau Airport Development Company, along with the Department of Agriculture and Ministry of Environmental Health. While our interview site was not one of the places toads have been found, it is the type of ecosystem they gravitate to.
2013, that was the big cane toad outbreak. That's what we saw them in Lyford Key. And then there was like a lull, and then we start seeing them pop up again. When you have weather like this that's happening due to things like climate change and then also the rainy season, you're going to see these toads starting to pop up more as there's more water in the area, so more breeding opportunities for them.
Despite the concern, Johnson says there's no need to panic.
Here, you shouldn't be running around going into a panic over these cane toads. But what you should do is you should exercise a level of caution around them.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks so much for that update, Josh. Now, later tonight, we'll tell you how to spot a cane toad and what you should do if you encounter one. Meantime, officials at Queens College campus dealing with online threats this week. In a statement, the institution confirmed threats were made on social media toward the school. As a result, an investigation was launched, resulting in the arrest of the individuals responsible for those threats. In addition to this incident, 2 students from a neighboring school were found on the campus after school hours recently. A school community member then forced the students off the campus, after which the matter was turned over to police. Despite this, school administration is confident in the students' safety and is reaffirming its commitment to protecting its campus and students. Our news team visited the school's campus today, but officials declined to comment on the matter. 25 foreign nationals were arraigned this week for immigration offenses. The group appeared before Acting Chief Magistrate Roberto Reckley on Thursday. 17 Haitian nationals were charged with working outside the scope of their permit. They all pled guilty and were convicted and fined $500. Failure to pay will land them 2 months behind bars at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services. Additionally, 7 Haitian nationals pled guilty to the charge of overstaying and were convicted and fined $500 or served 2 months at B-Docks. Now, once the fines are paid and the sentences completed, all of the migrants will be deported. The Court of Appeal has upheld an award of damages to a police sergeant who was wrongfully arrested by his superiors, including the current Commissioner of Police. Sergeant 2375 Theodore Neely was arrested on September 1, 2016, after he expressed support for Maria Jackson. Neely, who worked at the Criminal Investigation Department, told another police officer that Jackson should be released. Neely's remarks got back to Commissioner Clayton Fernandez, who was then head of CID. Fernandez and other officers took Neely to police headquarters in an unmarked police jeep to see former Commissioner Anthony Ferguson. The Court of Appeal affirmed the decision of Justice Camille Tarvel Gomez that Neely was unlawfully arrested and detained. The government appealed the decision and lost. The damages that Neely will receive has yet to be determined. Well, an inner city community with high rates of crime has seen a drop-off in serious crimes. That, according to the Member of Parliament for Nassau Village, Jamal Strawn. He credits good policing, inclusive of saturation patrols and community policing, for the drop.
I would attribute a lot of it to just increased saturation patrols. The Minister of National Security, the Commissioner of Police, community policing, they're all synchronized, we're all coming together, and like you said, you're seeing the decline in the criminal activity and in the crime rate in the constituency, as well as just social intervention, being there, being accessible, communicating.
Strong at children returning to the classroom is also yielding good results.
We have also seen an increase in school attendance post-COVID, of course, and just an overall willingness and zeal to return to school. So I attribute that to the Minister of Education, who is doing an amazing job as well, and ensuring that everything that students need, the facilities, the infrastructure, are prepared and ready to receive those students.
Great news for the community. Well, it's time now for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the weather center. Greg, lots of rain today. What can we expect?
A lot of rain, yeah. But believe it or not, that was a rain band from Ophelia, which formed earlier this afternoon into a tropical storm. We should talk about that in a short while. But yeah, we did have a big deluge of some rainfall across the central parts of the island that posed some flooding problems. It's rather cool outside though. Our studios, 80 degrees under partly cloudy skies. No rain out there right now. Your winds out of the west at 4 miles per hour and your feels-like temperature is at 81. If we take a look at some of that video that we had earlier today, we did mention a couple of heavy downpours. We also saw some funnel clouds. So here's some footage for earlier today of that funnel cloud activity out there. And of course, like I mentioned, this was actually from a rain band from Ophelia that continued to plague us. And that rain band is swinging out towards the east and will continue to do so. But we are still expecting some showers and some thunderstorms throughout tonight and into tomorrow. Temperatures around the islands right now, it's 81 in Freeport, 82 in Marsh Harbor, Abaco. Pick up a pair of 80s, well, actually a couple of 83s. Alistown, Bimini, Great Harbor Key, and in Governor's Harbor. Nicholstown, Andros, you guys are 84. Central Bahamas, 83 in Kemps Bay. More 84s in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Georgetown. Coventown, San Salvador, 82. Deadman's Key, 85. Into the Southeast Bahamas, 85s, Duncantown, Ragged Island, Colonel Hill, Cricket Island, and in Matthewtown, Inagua. Delectable Bay, 84, Abrams Bay, 84, and Providenciales, you guys routing out our temperature profile at 87. Satellite-wise, well, as I mentioned, a rain band associated with Ophelia, which formed early this afternoon, swinging through the northwest Bahamas, and we do have a big upper level low that's helping to fire up those showers and thunderstorms, so that's what caused the showers, heavy showers, and some thunderstorm activity across us. Ophelia will continue to move towards the north, but that rain band, you notice some of that in the Gulf of Mexico, that will be swinging through us for another day or so. That's your quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the island. Stick with us, I'll look at your forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, just under 1,600 public servants will be promoted next month, and there's still time to have your name on that list. Plus, the GBPA launches their Tech Edge program on Grand Bahama. It's an opportunity for Bahamians in tech. And later, could Grand Bahama's entertainment see support from Tyler Perry? The answer is coming up when our news returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP won elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Embrace technology and the digital transformation.
The Public Service is gearing up to roll out its first tranche of promotions in its widespread promotional exercise for the public service in October. We can tell you that just under 1,600 public servants will be promoted next month. Glover Roll says the entire exercise adds up to $6 million in funds to be paid out to public servants.
The process will see hundreds of public servants promoted, many of which have already been doing the work without receiving the titles, without receiving the pay. People have waited for years for promotions that they've earned to be processed, and sadly, some people have been waiting for decades. But while we can't give them the years back that they've waited for, we can assure that the wait will be over in terms of them receiving what is due to them.
The deadline for the various government departments to submit names for promotions was July 1st. This is the first widespread promotional exercise in 9 years. Glover Roll says some people will receive double promotions.
For the people who have qualified for, earned more than one promotion during this time frame, they will receive double promotions, and that will get them where they're supposed to be in their careers.
The Grand Bahama Port Authority looking to boost employment numbers on that island by introducing a new program aimed at contributing to Grand Bahama's technology and innovation sector. The company announced yesterday the launch of their Tech Edge program, an upskilling program geared toward providing more opportunities for Bahamians in tech.
Most programs in the Bahamas basically train persons and then we release you. We allow you to go out and you find your own jobs. This program is different. This program, we train you and we place you. So the idea is once you go through this program, you will be properly trained in a particular skill and you will work with one of the entities who represents a client of Quest. And this is why the partnership with Quest is so strategic to the success of this program.
And to get the program off the ground, the GBPA is partnering with the University of the Bahamas and Quest Corp, one of the largest employers in the world. The program, which begins next month, will accept the first 50 Bahamian candidates who will undergo an 8 to 12-week training provided by Quest Corp. And any Bahamian 18 years and older with a high school diploma may apply.
They will go a long way in helping to transform Grand Bahama into this bona fide jurisdiction where you have tech-related companies who might be interested in looking at nearshoring opportunities, now having access to a labor pool that they can actually source from. So this particular program today that we're launching will actually help to tick a very critical box in our value proposition for Grand Bahama in terms of how do we look when it comes to attracting some of these companies in the tech space?
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as 5 suspected Russian spies are arrested in the United Kingdom. Plus, Ukraine announces it will sue some of its European neighbors of a food imports ban. And Guyana's education minister sends a stern warning to schools about sending students home because of their hairstyles. We have the details when our news returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP-1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Embrace technology and the digital
This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. British prosecutors have authorized charges to be brought against 5 Bulgarian nationals accused of spying for Russia for almost 3 years. The Bulgarian nationals are accused of conspiring to gather information that would be useful to an enemy between August 2020 and February 2023. It follows an investigation by the Metropolitan Police. The defendants are alleged to have worked in an operational spy cell for the Russian security services, and this work involved conducting surveillance on targets. They are accused of working on active operations in the UK and Europe and collecting and passing information to the Russian state. South Korea has passed a new law to better protect school teachers from complaining parents. Under the new legislation called the Teachers' Rights Restoration Bill, teachers will not be immediately removed following a report of child abuse. Further investigation and evidence will be required. Financial support will also be made available to teachers fighting lawsuits, and there will be more responsibility on head teachers to protect their staff. The protests erupted after the suicide in July of a 23-year-old primary school teacher who had been dealing with complaints from parents. Ukraine plans on suing some of its European neighbors over an import ban. Francis Maguire reports.
Ukraine plans to sue Poland, Hungary and Slovakia over bans on Ukrainian agricultural products. That was the statement from the country's Agriculture Minister Mykola Solsky on Monday. The EU imposed restrictions in May that allowed 5 of Ukraine's neighbours to ban domestic sales of Ukrainian wheat, maize, rapeseed and sunflower seeds, all while allowing transit of such cargoes for export elsewhere. Poland, Slovakia and Hungary announced their own restrictions on Ukrainian grain imports on Friday. They did so after the European Commission didn't extend its ban on imports into Ukraine's 5 EU neighbours. Warsaw, Bratislava and Budapest say they are acting in the interests of their economies. They said their moves were not aimed at Ukraine, but at protecting their farmers from a glut of products. Politico quoted Ukrainian Trade Representative Taras Kachka as saying it was important to prove these actions as legally wrong. He further reportedly told Politico that Ukraine could impose reciprocal measures on the import of fruit and vegetables if Warsaw didn't drop its additional measures. Ukraine may have support from Spanish Agriculture Minister Luis Planas Punchares. He said the ban on Ukrainian grain by some member states looked illegal.
The fact that any member country, I'm not judging one member country, but any member country takes unilateral action restricting what is the access to the single market seems to me something that is out of the law, but is to the Commission to judge.
Polish Agriculture Minister Robert Telus said Warsaw's ban covers 4 cereals, but it was also extended to include meals from these cereals, corn, wheat and rapeseed. Kyiv had already said it could seek international arbitration over the restrictions. Ukrainian farmers have relied on grain exports through neighbouring countries through so-called solidarity lanes since Russia invaded. Those farmers have been unable to use the favoured routes through Black Sea ports. About 60% of Ukraine's grains has been moving through the EU alternative routes.
The president of the Dominican Republic said he would meet United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres on Wednesday to discuss a call from a UN expert to allow humanitarian supplies to pass through his country's shuttered border with Haiti. President Louis Abinader, who is seeking re-election in May, announced a total border shutdown on Thursday over the construction of a canal from a shared river he argues violates a 1929 treaty. The Dominican Republic says the canal is being built by non-government agents, but has called on Haiti's government, which is facing escalating gang warfare and a worsening humanitarian crisis, to halt construction. St. Kitts and Nevis has topped this year's CBI Index rankings for offering one of the best citizenship by investment programs in the world. The CBI Index, published by the Financial Times' Professional Wealth magazine, St. Kitts and Nevis stood out for taking immediate and decisive action. St. Kitts and Nevis was rated against 11 other countries, including Antigua and Barbuda, Austria, Cambodia, Dominica, Egypt, Grenada, Jordan, Malta, St. Lucia, Turkey, and Vanuatu. Dominica scored 75 points to rank second. St. Lucia and Grenada ranked third with 72 points, while Antigua and Barbuda ranked fifth with 66 points. Guyana's Education Minister, Priya Manik-Chand, is warning schools about sending students home because of their hairstyles. In a statement posted on social media, the Education Minister said, "Children are not to be sent home for any breach or perceived breach of any school's hairstyle rule, and any person so doing will face disciplinary proceedings." The Ministry of Education has since issued a statement reminding schools that children should not be sent home because of their hairstyles. The statements follow a report posted on social media indicating that a South Secondary School student had been sent home because of her hairstyle. Still to come in our news. Today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was September 22nd. Plus, private talks with the Prime Minister. Tyler Perry tight-lipped on his meeting with the PM. We'll tell you what we know. And then in our news at 7:30, we'll tell you how to protect yourself against the invasive cane toad. That's coming up when our news returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP-1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you. Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP-1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th.
Welcome back to our news. It's now time to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was September 22nd. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history, on September 22nd, the 1929 Bahamas hurricane, also known as the Great Andros Island Hurricane, formed in the Atlantic. It was a Category 4 tropical cyclone whose intensity and slow forward speed led to catastrophic damage in the Bahamas, particularly on Andros and New Providence Islands. Its erratic path and lack of nearby weather observations made the hurricane difficult to locate and forecast. The hurricane was responsible for 48 deaths in the country, mainly on the island of Andros. The devastation of the hurricane was immortalized in the song Run Come See by Alfonso Blind Blake Higgs. In 2019, then Prime Minister Hubert Minnis formed a new ministry to tackle disaster response.
We must and we will rebuild and restore Grand Bahama and Abaco stronger and more resilient.
The creation of the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness, Management and Reconstruction comes not only in response to the widespread destruction from Hurricane Dorian, but also as the country faces a climate in crisis.
We must make immediate and medium-term changes. But as a small island developing state with many islands and many keys, there are many long-term changes and restructuring that required a dedicated cabinet ministry.
And in 2021, 11 ministers were sworn into the Davis-led cabinet, pushing the Davis-led cabinet to nearly 24 ministers. The new ministers included Obi Wolshcombe, Minister of Social Services and Urban Development, Keith Bell, Minister of Labor and Immigration, Vaughn Miller, Minister of the Environment and Natural Resources, JoBeth Colby Davis, Minister of Transport and Housing, Ginger Moxie, Minister for Grant Bahama, Mario Boleg, Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture. 5 junior ministers also took the oath of allegiance and office, including Basil McIntosh as Minister of State for the Environment, Lisa Ramming as Minister of State for Social Services and Urban Development, Pia Glover-Roll as Minister of State for the Public Service, Miles LaRota as Minister of State in the Office of the Prime Minister, and Zane Lightbourne as Minister of State for Education, Technical and Vocational Training. Well, he goes by many titles, whether he's wearing the hat of producer, actor, philanthropist, entrepreneur, or anything else in the entertainment industry. You've probably heard the name Tyler Perry. In a one-on-one interview this morning, Perry shares his love for the Bahamas. While Why Did I Get Married To was shot here, he explains why we haven't seen another trip to the islands as yet.
This is really selfish on my part, the amount of privacy that I've managed to have here. And when I come here, I don't want to think about work. I just want to relax. I just want to enjoy the beauty and enjoy the people and the richness of the culture. But absolutely, I'll write something for the Bahamas again, to come back and film here.
In recent months, the Minister for Grand Bahama has been advocating to make Grand Bahama the entertainment capital. I asked Perry if we could possibly see his backing for the industry in the nation's second city.
That's really good. When I think about the Bahamas, I know it's a lot of, everybody's pretty territorial, Bimini's Cat Island. I was just hearing arguments about that just there. But when I think about the Bahamas, I think about the culture as a whole and how we can help and move and motivate the entire culture. So I know it's a lot of different islands, but I think of it as a whole.
While noting that Bahamians take their pride in their unique island heritage, he explains what makes us all one, in his eyes.
I think of it as a whole because of the people. Right. The people are all rich and in spirit and culture and just care and compassion for each other.
Now, Perry also met with Prime Minister Philip Davis in a closed meeting. While he could not disclose the details, there may be an announcement to come about future collaborations.
The synergy between what I have in Atlanta and what can be built here, what we can do here, the amount of training that we can do here, even filming here could be really, really great. So I'd like to walk that avenue and see exactly what we can do and what works. As I was discussing, the biggest issue is having the exact right infrastructure and the exact right people in place to do the training. So that's always more challenging than actually getting the building and the brick and mortar.
Now, to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That does it for Our News Live at 7. Joining us now is our Talia Hall with the latest headlines. Talia.
Thanks so much, Megan. Well, a former health minister sounds the alarm on what he says is a medication shortage and the case of a man convicted of killing a tourist heads to the Privy Council. Here are your latest headlines. What is the issue? First tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. That's the question the chairman of the FNM is asking following reports that there's a shortage of medication. Plus, dengue cases on the rise in country and cases are reported on new islands. We have the breakdown. Also, the case of a man convicted of a tourist murder is headed to the Privy Council. And later, a veteran broadcaster, Natalie Moddenborough, has died.
She was not loud and boisterous. She was a fun person to be around and, very pleasant individual. I'm definitely going to miss her.
Tonight, her former colleagues are remembering her life when Our News Live at 7:30 returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
In what we do at Best Brew, it really doesn't end when the customer purchases our product. We offer specialty coffee, tea, spices, and brewing equipment. We do a lot of our orders via website. We actually have the mobile service and the phone service and the internet. So having business in a box really kind of brought everything together for us and helps us to be able to provide the customer services that we pride ourselves on.
Don't spend hours sending individual messages to your customers. Use SMS messaging instead. With Cable Bahamas Business Solutions SMS messaging, you can send personalized messages to hundreds or even thousands of recipients instantly. It's quick, effortless, and cost-effective. Plus, it ensures that your messages are delivered directly to your customers' cellular phones, guaranteeing higher engagement. Save time and boost your outreach with SMS bulk messaging. Call Cable Bahamas Business Solutions at 601-8911 in Nassau or 602-8811 in the Family Islands.
Embrace technology and the digital transformation for better business results.
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. Is it a supply chain issue or a payment issue? That's the question posed by the F&M chairman and former health minister amid what he says is a shortage of important supplies and medication within the public healthcare system. Our Berthie McDermott has his candid comments in this report.
Free National Movement Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands claiming the public healthcare system is suffering from the shortage of important supplies and is questioning the reason behind it. Dr. Sands, who served as health minister under the former minister's administration, says there seems to be a medication shortage across the islands.
The roads can't get fixed, the traffic lights aren't working, and we could go on and on and on. The hospital is out of medications. Clinics are out of medications in different islands. We wonder whether there's anything called prioritization or whether this is just a big game.
Sands reasons that while some may say the shortage may be due to supply chain concerns, he's suggesting it could be a money matter.
Not just medication, but supplies. And, there are specific items that are simply not available. Now, you'll hear various and sundry reasons as to why they're not available. Oh, this is an international stock issue. Oh, this is a different issue. But we want to know whether there are instances where vendors have simply stopped providing goods and services on the basis of non-payment.
One of the supplies on the list is vascular grafts, which he says are used with dialysis patients. He says they're available in the private sector, but not in the public sector. Sands also claims he was contacted by a patient in need of a drug prescribed to cancer patients. We reached out to Public Hospitals Authority Managing Director Dr. Abinette Roll, who said she would check for an update.
So yes, there are stock out items. Now, this happens, and in part sometimes can be related to supply chain issues. But we want to know whether this is simply an issue of a funding challenge. Is the government of the Bahamas absolutely keeping up with the stage payments to its various agencies and industries? And from the comments that we're receiving from persons in ministries all across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the answer is no.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthie McDermott.
Thanks, Berthie. Well, the number of confirmed dengue fever cases in the country are growing, with the most recent stats showing 128 cases to date. That's 111 cases in New Providence, 15 cases in Grand Bahama, 1 case each in Exuma and the Berry Islands. At last report, there was only 1 dengue-related death, a 9-year-old boy in New Providence. Well, the Privy Council has agreed to hear the appeal of a man who was sentenced to 37 years in prison for the murder of a tourist. Anton Bastian was convicted of the 2013 murder of American Kyle Bruner, who was shot dead after he intervened in the mugging of 2 women. Bastian was allegedly part of the mugging, but he did not shoot Bruner. The country's final court will determine whether the judge's directions to the jury on joint enterprise were adequate. The hearing will be held in 2024. And now to some sad news. Our News has learned veteran journalist Natalie Martinborough has passed away. The news sending shockwaves across the country as many found out about her death late last night. Tonight, those who knew her are remembering her and says that she will truly be missed.
She was Natalie Martinborough, and she wanted to be the best Natalie Martinborough she could be.
Veteran journalist Natalie Martinborough was born in Long Island. After graduating high school, she moved to New Providence to attend the College of the Bahamas in the 1980s, where she obtained her degree in journalism. Shortly after, she moved to Grand Bahama and was the voice many heard for decades at ZNS Northern Service.
I think young journalists would do well to take the work ethic that she had. She was very dedicated, very committed, hard worker.
Moving up through the ranks from a reporter, Martin Bora became a producer and eventually the news director for ZNS Northern Service. Her last post, assistant general manager for news and radio. She was often the brain behind each newscast.
Natalie's been a champion in broadcasting. She's been a helper, a friend.
She's been recognized for her skills and talents by many national and international organizations.
I can remember people used to call into ZNS to find out how a word was pronounced. Natalie was one of them who would pronounce the word properly and give its meaning and its definition. She was a walking dictionary.
Natalie is so loving when it comes to her, to my children. She loved kids.
Natalie just had a dedication and a love for this place. And I just think it was also for the people. It's for the people, because everyone could go to Natalie with any concern.
She would have also mentored and trained many young journalists, including some of us here at Our News.
She welcomed me with open arms. She was always a leader, somebody that I respected, somebody that I learned a lot from. Some days I would just hear a little foot tap and pat, 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 and I'm like, oh Lord, Natalie, come in. And then she would just lean over and say something like, oh, you have on your nice black glasses today, or.
And I can truly, truly say that I am who I am today as a reporter because of the foundation that Natalie has helped to set in my life. And she will so truly, truly, truly be missed. Natalie had a memory like no other. And I would always go to her for research for any topic, and she always had the answers.
The veteran broadcaster died at the age of 55 following a brief illness, something many did not see coming.
To know that she ain't coming back through these doors no more, it's rough. It's rough.
And as you would have heard, Martin Borough mentored and trained many young journalists, including myself, as she took me under her wings at the age of 20 and has played a major role in my growth and development as a journalist. May her soul rest in peace, and a heartfelt condolences to her family from the entire news team. We have much more to get to in a moment, but for now, in just a few hours, summer will be over and we will move into the fall season. Meteorologist Greg Thompson joins us from the Weather Center with a quick check on weather. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. Yeah, we will be moving into fall. I don't know if we really get fall, but yeah, temperatures are going to start to cool down as we approach the latter part of the year. But we have partly cloudy skies outside our studios right now. Temperature is at 80 degrees. The winds are now out of the west at 4 miles per hour. They're going to fall off light and variable tonight. And your feels like temperature is 81. Satellite radar composite. Believe it or not, this is a rain band from Ophelia, which formed earlier this afternoon, Tropical Storm Ophelia. It's racing up towards the north, should be moving into the Carolinas late tonight or into tomorrow, but we will continue to see some moisture moving across us, so we're looking for some more showers. We did have quite a bit of deluge earlier today, got some significant rain and some flooding in Providence. That's a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the island. Stick with us. I'll look at your tropics and the weekend forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, find out if the promised changes to the weekly OPM press briefing have been implemented. Plus, the PS PEP program is gearing up for its next round of participants this year. And we continue our talk with a top RF executive about the Bahamas International Securities Exchange. This time, he's revealing how Grand Bahama is benefiting. That's all coming up when Our News returns.
Doctors Hospital has reimagined primary care. We have invested to improve our health system, ensuring that accessible, affordable, world-class clinical care is closer to you. Your relationship with a primary care provider shapes the foundation of your overall health. Our new, modern primary care facilities are where critical diagnosis and true personalized treatment begin. With locations across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Exuma, we invite you to experience the Doctors Hospital difference. Book your next appointment at clinics.doctorshos.com.
Collect Verse Access is as easy as grab a collect, scan a collect. Open your camera app, focus on the QR code, and click the link that appears. You own your Collect Verse experience. Take selfies, join the cultural referendum, and share with your friends. See content from local chefs, Olympic athletes, and cultural icons. Collect is proud to be 50. Grab a collect, scan a collect. Get in the Collect Verse today.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP-1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Embrace technology and the
One week after cabinet briefings were canceled for a more comprehensive press briefing on Thursdays, it seems nothing has changed. Communications Director in the Office of the Prime Minister, Latrey Ramming, told Our News the combined briefings will allow reporters to have access to cabinet ministers. But this week, that did not happen. Acting Press Secretary Keishla Adderley telling us changes are coming.
That is a work in progress. I do want to make very clear, however, that the Davis administration remains committed to the media having full access. There may be some tweaks and changes along the way. And of course, the concerns of the press will be taken into account and considered. Again, changes will be made.
Adderley was asked to respond to concerns that it was another step to hinder the press. She responded this way.
The concern was raised. I understand that. As you pointed out, being a reporter myself, I can tell you that as I've said, the administration has not changed its position on media access. I'm available. There are other members of the communications team who are available. We are responsive to questions from the media, and that has not changed.
All right, well, the PSPEP program is gearing up for its next round of participants this year. Labor and Public Service Minister Pia Glover-Rule says they've learned a lot from the inclusion of people with disabilities in last year's program. An initiative, she says, will feature people with disabilities again this year.
Last year, we learned that they are indeed capable and competent. We see that they all were successful in assimilating after their 52-week program. The organizations and departments that took them were very pleased. And if it was one thing, and it's always that thing that we could focus on, is making our buildings, our physical structures, more accessible.
And now to more from our monthly sit-down with RF Bank and Trust. Tonight, Group Head of Investment Management David Slatter is talking about one of the top stars of the Bahamas International Securities Exchange, like Doctors Hospital, and their investment in the city of Freeport. He's also sharing some of his current favorites on the market. Let's take a look.
I think, we're starting to see more than just hope. We're starting and talk. We're starting to see some shovels in the ground. We're starting to see money, capital being raised. So whether it's the government's hospital plans in Grand Bahama, Doctors Hospital plans in Grand Bahama, the rebuild of the airport, it has to be done, right? If Freeport's going to recover, they must have the ability to handle capacity, right, as far as tourists. So I'm cautiously optimistic that, Freeport is going from the theoretical hope phase into more of an actual potential for recovery. So I'm I'm cautiously optimistic about Freeport going forward.
All right. In terms of stocks, which would you say been your favorite over the past 12 months and why?
You want advice for free, do you? We were, let's see if I mentioned the stars, and we were active buyers of BOB, active buyers of Commonwealth Bank's Kalina, and Focal to a lesser extent. So we've been doing a pretty good job of picking, good companies. Going forward, what we look at is the price to earnings multiple and the dividend yield. Companies I like, Finco, the Bahamas Property Fund. If you look at the book value of that company, so it's been a dog for a while, but it's starting to make a nice rebound. It was at $6 for a long time. It's now up to $7. They reinstated paying a dividend. And if you look at the book value of the company, it's in excess of $11 per share, and it's trading at $7. So if I could buy a company worth $11 per share and pay $7 for it. Seems like a no-brainer to me. If you want that steady dividend, you know, we once again, we like J.S. Johnson, we like Focal. AML, as I mentioned, I think it has reason to keep an eye on it. I don't know if now's the time to jump into AML, but definitely keep an eye on AML. And CIBC, as I mentioned, I think would be another one if you want to pick up a few shares in anticipation of that U.S. interest rates dropping next year and that boosting their bottom line. You wouldn't be faulted for doing that. And doctors for basically, so they had a great doctors did really well during COVID. They made a lot of income. The last year income has fallen off. They have been spending quite a bit for capital expenditure purposes. So if these capital expenditures can actually turn into increased profitability, that may be another company to look at.
All right, now stay tuned to our news as next week's ladder will focus on the tourism sector. When our news comes back from the break, gas prices are climbing. Find out how to cut costs at the pump.
See which track and field superstar is giving assist to the next generation. Don't go anywhere, our sports is coming right up.
And find out how you can spot a cane toad. We have the details when our news returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP-1 elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Embrace technology and the digital transformation for better business results. For small business owners, it's essential to understand how technology can affect operational efficiencies. Modern communication relies on technology, and your customer service depends on communication. With proper tools like our fixed and mobile services, we help you stay connected. For solutions that work, ask the experts. Call Cable Bahamas Business Solutions.
In what we do at Best Brew, it really doesn't end when the customer purchases our product. We offer specialty coffee, tea, spices, and brewing equipment. We do a lot of our orders via website. We actually have the mobile service and the phone service and the internet. So having business in a box really kind of brought everything together for us and helps us to be able to provide the customer services that we pride ourselves on.
Don't spend hours sending individual messages.
This is Our News. Welcome back. With the cost of gas peaking at $6.12 at some pumps, many residents are concerned about how long gas will last in their tanks. While Vice President of the Petroleum Retailers Association, Vasco Bastian, says there are some measures motorists can take to preserve gas.
We could use gas treatment. Every time we go to the gasoline and we want to fill up, we could ask the pump attendant for some gas treatment. We could inflate our tires at the right level. Also, driving with your air conditioner. Sometimes you could crack your window or put it down and get some of that natural breeze if you don't want to drive with your AC. I recommend your AC sometimes, but if you feel just like having a natural breeze, there's different ways that you could do.
And he says speed also plays a fact in gas consumption.
If you could reduce your speed, you know, when you press the pedal to the floor, you burn more gasoline. So if you could just slow down with the speed, there are different tips that you could do to conserve fuel as a consumer.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
All right, well, elite track athletes share their skills with young, aspiring runners, and the UB Mingo soccer team is in the middle of a 2-game tour. Here's Tej Adderley with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Ataya. Good evening, happy Friday. I'm Tej Adderley here to take you into the weekend with some sports. Bahamian Olympian Devin Charlton and her American training partner held a clinic for young athletes. Our Sasha Liburn was there and she has this report.
Just over 24 young girls got the opportunity of a lifetime at a free hurdles clinic held yesterday by our very own Devin Charlton and her American training partner, Masai Russell. Coming off the World Championships, both ladies says doing the clinic was a no-brainer for them.
It's been on my mind for a while to do something like this, and so it was a no-brainer to say yes. And I'm kind of overwhelmed with the amount of young ladies that showed up. 20 plus, I think is a good number.
Like I said, it's all about giving back, and then especially since it just was last minute and all these amazing girls came out, it just shows like the impact that we have within the short notice is just like, why not? And these girls are taking in all this information from just such great athletes, and it's just, we're doing it for free. We're not doing it for anything.
Charlton added that she's happy to see hurdles is becoming more popular among young Bahamian athletes.
But like now I'm coming out and I see hurdlers a part of like every track club. You go to meets and there's 3-4 heats of the hurdles before everything went to straight finals. And so I think it speaks to what myself and like other hurdlers have done on the international scene.
Now, the Charlton family has been associated with track and field in the country for years. So I asked Devin's mother, Laura, how it felt watching her daughter give back to future hurdlers.
That value was instilled in all of our kids that at some point in time, you must give back because like they say, to whom much is given, much is required or expected.
Thanks, Sasha. Great work by Devin and her training partner. Moving things over to the pitch, the UB soccer team is in the middle of a tour. The UB Mingos soccer team headed to Florida to play a pair of games against Millennia Atlantic University, their first under new head coach Alex Thompson. Despite taking a 0-0 tie into the first half, the Mingos fell on Thursday night to MAU 5-1 with Peter Julimus scoring their only goal. Before we go, we have a busy weekend for our women in sports. Jonquel Jones and Liberty play game 1 of the WNBA semifinals against their former team, the Connecticut Sun, on Sunday. Our women's soccer team will also play Grenada again, this time in Grenada. Check with our websites and socials because you know we're going to have those scores for you. That's all for sports this week. I'm Tage Adley. It's the weekend. Make it a great one.
Still ahead on our news tonight, cane toads are back and officials say you should be on the lookout for the invasive species. But just how can you spot a cane today? Find out right after this break. Plus, heavy showers cause widespread flooding and a dip in temperatures. Greg is back with your weather details when our news returns.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP won elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Embrace technology and the digital transformation for better business results. For small business owners, it's essential to understand how technology can affect operational efficiencies. Modern communication relies on technology, and your customer service depends on communication. With proper tools like our fixed and mobile services, we help you stay connected. For solutions that work, ask the experts. Call Cable Bahamas Business Solutions.
Parliament is prorogued, ending the first legislative session of the Davis administration. It's been 2 years since the PLP won elections, ushering in a new government. On October 4th, a brand new session of Parliament begins with a new Governor General, a new speech from the throne, and with it, a blueprint for a new legislative agenda. Stay with Our News Nightly and follow ournews.bs for analysis and insight, and most of all, what's important to you.
Welcome back to our news. We're wrapping up the work week, but will the heavy rain follow us into the weekend? Well, Greg is back in the Weather Center live with your extended weather forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody. Yeah, we are expecting some showers. Ophelia formed early this afternoon. It's now a tropical storm racing towards the north and away from us, but there are some rain bands. We'll show you that close up a little later. But right now, the far eastern Atlantic, we're still watching an area, broad area showers and some thunderstorms. National Hurricane Center now up that to a 90% chance for formation. We will have to watch this one very closely. It's tracking towards west-northwest, and it's moving in more or less in that direction, but that will occur probably next week. Then there's also a very strong one coming off of Africa. That's also another one that we will continue to watch. Of course, Ophelia formed, as I mentioned, this afternoon, tropical storm with 70-mile-per-hour winds, just under hurricane strength, but it's very close to landfall, so it's not going to make it to a hurricane status, we don't think. But it will be moving in. No direct impacts to us, except that we will be seeing some very large swells affecting the northern islands, and that system will continue to provide us with some showers with a rain band staying across us, and there is some more moisture in the Gulf of Mexico that will keep the rain in our forecast over the next day or so. Boating conditions, small craft caution in effect for the northwest Bahamas. High rip current risk. We're asking you beachgoers to stay out of the waters out there. Easterly winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 4 feet, but they will be up to 6 feet along the northern and Atlantic exposures. The low tide will be at 8:20 tonight. For the central and southeast Bahamas, caution flight for you down there as well. Winds a little stronger, east to southeast 15 knots, seas 3 to 5 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, due to the rain band hanging with us and that moisture in place, where we keep showers all the way through the forecast period, temperatures should be very comfortable. They should be in the upper 80s to low 90s. Of course, those nighttime temperatures will be in the upper 70s near the 80-degree mark. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night and have a great weekend, everybody.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. Well, residents now on high alert as environmental officials are warning of the return of the invasive cane toad species. But what should you look for when identifying a cane toad? Wildlife biologist and environmental scientist Scott Johnson sharing what physical traits to look for.
So you have a large toad that's between 4 inches in length all the way up to 10 inches. So you're going to see a fat, kind of ugly looking amphibian on the ground, and it's going to be hopping as it tries to escape. They usually come out at night because they are predominantly nocturnal. Sometimes you may see them during the early parts of the morning. Their numbers are growing. Every part of their life cycle is poisonous. So it doesn't matter if you find eggs of cane toads, whether you find juveniles or whether you find adults, the whole life cycle of a cane toad is poisonous.
The environmental scientists also warning that the toxins are more harmful to pets than humans. Now, despite the Ministry of Environment warning residents against searching for the toads, Johnson says residents can capture the critters, emphasizing the importance of avoiding the toxins.
What you would do is you would grab them, and wearing gloves, naturally, and you would put them in a bag, and then you would put them in a freezer. You do not want to go out there, if you see a toad, you don't want to go out there and get a cutlass and try and chop the toad. When you get the cane toad and you put that in the bag, you would want to go and put it in the freezer, or another wise thing for you to do is to contact the Department of Environmental Health Services or Animal Control.
All right, and with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.